we did find some instances where the machine was not responsive once the voter's fingerprint was tested. Happily, in those circumstances, there were measures that could be used. There were fallback positions. One was to input the number that appeared on the identification card, and that would bring up the database so that the official could satisfy himself or herself that the voter was the correct person. Another was to take a photograph of the voter using the machine, and the machine would be able to match that photograph with the database. Two things I would say. I have to pass through US airports frequently. For all my sins, I happen to be a man who believes I'm a jack of all trades. So I work on my own motor car engine, I work on my own boat engine. And therefore my fingerprints are not as robust as they ought to be. And I have difficulty myself when I go to an immigration counter in the United States for the machine to read my fingerprint. And I suspect that that may be what happens in many cases. What we're encouraged about, though, is that according to the Commission, the number of machines that malfunctioned in that way they gave a figure of 200. Now 200 out of 46,000, that's less than half of 1%. And anybody involved with technology will tell you that if that is your margin of error, you're doing damn well. So I don't think it's something that would cause us to indict the usefulness of the machines. Insofar as the 2017 elections were concerned, I think one has to look very carefully at the issues that the court determined warranted the annulment of those elections. Because when you're observing elections, so much of what you observe has to do with the atmosphere, the tranquility, the extent to which people are allowed access to polling stations, the extent to which people who are allowed to vote are the persons who are entitled to vote, various things like that. The court focused on one particular area that had been submitted to it for its ruling, and it ruled. It's not for me to make any comment on the ruling of the court. It's part of the Kenyan experience. And I believe that that experience has impacted, played a role in the quality of the preparation that went into these elections that have just been held. The third issue has to do with the time gap between the holding of elections and the announcement of the results. That's a matter about which we are concerned. Because when you have that kind of interregnum between the conclusion of the polls, the counting of the ballots, and the announcement of the official results, you end up with a period that is vulnerable to suspicion, to conspiracy theories, to allegations. It causes anxiety. And it is important that that be minimized as much as possible. The Kenyan laws require certain things, and as I understand it, the Commission cannot declare those results until it has satisfied itself that the images of the certificates that it received from each polling station indicating the result for those polling stations have been compared with the actual hard copy of that receipt. Now, if you're talking about 46,000 polling stations, it does take time for that comparison to be done. There are different views as to whether or not the Commission could, based on the images that were submitted to it, whether it could not have declared their results provisionally with as much emphasis as it would be able to put on provisionally, and then eventually to verify those results and to make the results official within the 7-day period. There are divergent views on that. In the country where I come from, the provisional results are announced the night of elections, and then the day after the elections, every single ballot is counted again. And it is that official count, that recount, that constitutes the final result. Now, we have had experiences in Jamaica where provisionally it is announced that I have won my seat, but when the ballots are recounted the following day, they discover that I didn't win my seat. And one has to factor in whether or not the possibility of that kind of change, given Kenya's own experience in the past, is something that would create unnecessary difficulty. I believe the conversation on this matter needs to continue, but in the meanwhile, I think we must commend the people of Kenya. I mean, people are waiting for the results. There are some people, I'm sure, who know what the results are. Political parties, I believe, would have got the information from their own agents in the station. But the fact that Kenya remains so calm is something that we mustn't lose sight of in terms of the importance of that.